joining us on the phone line right now. Larry Kudlow, senior contributor at CNBC and host of the Larry Kudlow Show, heard on WMAL Saturday at 7 p.m. Larry, it's tax day. We're going to get into that in just a moment. But look, I know every time I talk to you about the fluctuations in the market, you always give me the lecture about you're in it for the long term. Don't look at the daily fluctuations. But all that being said, we are seeing an extreme amount of volatility in the market right now. It's been plunging. It came back a little bit yesterday. What is driving the volatility? Can you help me with that?
I bet your wife really loves my advice. I'll bet you she knows.
You don't want to go
Can
there.
open, worms everywhere.
Yeah, that's right, Larry.
Full-hand Luke, like myself, is giving you guys good advice about your long-term retirement money. I'd love to meet her and just talk to her.
Well, you don't. There is no Mrs. Wilson at the moment.
But I would still like to witness this meeting. We could make this happen, Larry.
In theory, I sell it to my wife, so I just figured it's universally a good thing. And my wife is a Montana skinflint, so she's a tough sale. There's a lot of cross currents in the market. I do agree with you.
Cross currents. I knew there was something going on.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think people are trying to figure out, first of all, how expensive some of these high-flying tech and biotech stocks have been, and how much they're going to have to correct, because they got way ahead of themselves in terms of value and price earnings multiples. So I do think that's one part. It hasn't really infected the rest of the market very much, but it has affected those particular sectors, tech and biotech, and that's going to be a theme. That's going to be a theme. There's related to that, I do think people are concerned about the economic growth outlook, and they're not sure whether the sort of growthy stocks, that includes things like industrials and materials and energy and consumer discretionary, retailers and cars, whether that stuff is too expensive or not relative to the economy and relative to profits. You had a good number yesterday in retail sales. Okay, the retail sales number beat everybody.
Yeah, up by 1.1%, I think it was, right?
No, that's right. And I think that's why the market rallied yesterday, because it did beat everybody's expectations.
All right, but you say cross currents. Let me just drill down on that for a moment, because if you have cross currents, doesn't one current generally win out? Which one's going to win out?
Well, I don't know. That's a very good question.
Good question, yeah.
I think they're neutralizing each other, because I think that the basic story here is still an economy that's expanding at a lower than historic rate. It's kind of a substandard recovery. But there are profits being generated, and profits are the mother's milk of stocks. And I think whenever you have these corrections, there's a floor underneath the correction because of the rising profits. When you get to a point, and we will get to this point in this business cycle at some time, when profits are actually declining, and when that occurs, particularly if interest rates are rising, then you're going to see the 20% style correction. Right now, I don't see it. I just don't see it. I will say one other thing on this. I think you mentioned taxes at the top. Tax payments surprisingly high this year. Upper end earners, they got soaked by various tax bills in the last couple of years, and I think there's some selling going on to pay the tax bill. Now, this is not unusual for this time of the year, but I do think tax selling is part of the story. And my pal Grover Norquist has a great piece, which you can find. Obama has proposed 442 tax hikes since taking office.
Yeah.
It's a great piece.
It is.
And, in 2013, let's face it, top rates went up, capital gains went up, dividends went up. These are all investment-oriented taxes. So I think tax selling has been part of this correction.
Yeah, I think Brian just needs to do us all a favor, sell his stocks and buy some T-bills, and then you won't worry anymore. See, that'll be company.
I don't worry.
For
I just want. Look, you get a guy like Larry, you want the benefit of his knowledge.
I will blow the whistle at some point, but I'm not ready to blow it yet.
All right.
I'm going to help you. I'm going to get you through this. Trust me.
Well, there are some whistles being blown over at General Motors. We talked about this briefly a couple of weeks ago, and now the first two heads are rolling. Two senior executives have lost their jobs. Now, GM claims that it's not related directly to the Chevy Cobalt and Saturn Ion problems that they had with the ignition switches, but both of these people were involved in Mary Barra, CEO's inner circle, and how she handled this strategy in the public response. Is there more there over at GM than we're learning?
Well, those two were around for a while, weren't they?
Yeah, Melissa Howell, she was the Senior Vice President for Global Human Resources,
right.
And Selim Bingle, he was the Senior Vice President for Global Communications and Public Policy.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, GM is a Politburo-like operation. They're not going to tell you much, and they're not going to tell you anything more than they have to tell you. I just think, and this is one Indian's view, okay? I don't think I know anything more than you know about this, but I think GM's got a lot of trouble. I think this whole business of the Cobalt really goes back to 2002. And I think that because that precedes the restructuring that occurred, which was 2010 or 29, in any event, I think they got a problem. And I think the problem's going to go a while. And either there's going to be a large civil penalty or there may even be criminal prosecutions. The stock hasn't done badly. Initially it got slammed. The stock hasn't done badly since then. But I think all the news that's fit to print out of GM is not going to be good news, and I think you got to keep your eye on that.
Do you have any sense about the new HHS secretary? Will she be confirmed? Do you think there's going to be a fight over this?
Because and should there be a fight?
I mean, maybe there should be a fight because the question I think to be asked is, are you going to give us the real numbers?
Right, that's the key. No, you just nailed it. There has to be a fight because we want the real numbers. The $7.5 million sign-up number is a meaningless number. We don't know how many paid. We don't know how many were newly insured, and whether the rest of them were just people that already had insurance, which they lost, and they decided to go into the exchanges. We also don't know what the premium hikes are going to be, but they're going to be quite substantial. I mean, you're seeing industry analysts now talk about across the board 10 to 15% premium hikes going to be announced this week by individual plans, group plans, and probably going to see some employer plans coming up. So there's a lot we don't know. We don't know how much of this is Medicaid, and we just don't know how much of this is net uninsured. I've seen estimates from, again, industry observers who do this for a living. I've seen estimates that fewer than 2 million people are newly insured, that the net number is less than 2 million people. That's a very disappointingly low number. These are not really political guys. I want to add that. And Burwell, who I guess is a smart lady and so forth and is well qualified in general terms, is going to have to deliver this information. She's also going to have to tell the Senate, particularly the Republicans, but many of the Democrats running for election, what is the future going to look like? Because it seems as though President Obama has frozen the individual mandate for 3 years and has frozen the business mandate for 3 years, and there aren't going to be any deadlines and there aren't going to be any tax penalties, that the deadlines are a moving target and that the tax penalties will never happen because of this word hardship. If you have a hardship in securing an insurance plan, you're going to be off the hook. And that word hardship essentially nullifies all of these mandates or all of these business and individual mandates, which I believe have to go anyway.
Yeah.
So, in other words, she's got come clean on a lot of specific numbers and a lot of specific programmatic questions.
And
I don't know that it'll be hostile. I think she has a good rapport. I just think it's an information gap that has to come out.
All right, Larry Kudlow, always good to have you. Thanks for joining us.
We got our own hardship. We got to run.
Happy Tax Day, though.
Thank you very much. Have a great Good Friday, Easter, Passover, etc.
Same to you, sir.